Well, hello, it's me again. It's third Sabbath of the month, and that's when I do my Facebook Live, as you can see where I am, always from this particular church. Now, I'd like to speak about an interesting topic that maybe we haven't paid enough attention to. The idea that the God we worship, the God we serve, is a God of second chances. Now, what do I mean by that? God will call a person, but when that person shows some hesitation, is unwilling to maybe respond right away, that God will try something else to convince that person, or maybe even give a time lapse before coming back to that person and telling them again, this is the way I want you to go. Now think about Moses. He got a second chance. I think he realized his mission as a prince in Egypt, but then ended up committing a crime. And so God comes 40 years later and gives him another chance. Okay, now you are ready to be leader of my people. Think about Paul in the New Testament. When his conviction about God was so strong that he felt the need to persecute the very people who would open his mind to that gospel, God would give him a second chance, very dramatic second chance, in order for him to become what God intended, apostle to the Gentiles. Peter, the man with his foot in his mouth all the time. When Jesus told the disciples, one of you will betray me, the rest of you will run away. Peter was like, no, I'm never going to do that. If all of them run away from you, I will die for you. And just a few hours later, despite the warning of Jesus, he was doing the exact thing that Jesus had said he would do. But after the resurrection, Jesus takes him for a personal walk along the beach, reminding Peter that he is still chosen, he is still called, he's given a second chance. Jonah, when God first called him, Jonah says, this mission is not for me. Hey, look, I don't want to do this thing. Who wants to go to Nineveh? I don't agree with this plan. Nineveh is such an evil city. Why would God even want to give them a second chance? You know, the book of Jonah is full of second chances. Not just for Jonah, but also for the people of Nineveh. So he runs away. Now God has to kind of force his hand a little bit by creating that huge storm, being swallowed up inside that whale, and then finally ending up in Nineveh anyway. And realizing, well, God has given me another chance. So he completes his mission. In Jonah's case, not even truly happy about his mission or doing it. One of the most successful preachers in biblical history, yet one of the least satisfied with his own success. But he got that second chance. You see, the psalmists tell us that if God kept records of everything we did, we would all be lost. But because God is prepared to give second chances, and I would say a multitude of chances, if you like, despite the records, it doesn't mean that God doesn't keep records. It doesn't mean that he does not remember the wrongs and the sins we have done and committed. But it simply means that he will go the next step. Okay, you've done this, but I'm giving you another chance. You've been wrong, but I'm going to give you another chance. When you read the book of Judges, you discover it's full of these second chances. In fact, 15 different chances. Every time they failed God, got into trouble, and then cried, help, 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 God immediately sent a judge to deliver them. Of course, at some point in time, the multitude of chances may not work, as was the case with the people of Israel in the book of Judges. The book of Judges ends up in a really, really bad place. And it leaves you hanging with that horrific event without telling us if God had found a solution for them. But this idea of second chances runs through the Bible. You see, God is not willing to give up on us. We are very prepared to give up on each other. Humans are not very good at giving second chances, especially to people who have hurt us deeply or that we dislike deeply. But you see, the New Testament says that God started to love us not in response to our love, but as a cause for that love. That while we were still sinners, God sent his Son, gave his life on our behalf. See, that kind of second chances is divine, because it goes beyond what is needed, beyond what is called for, beyond what is capable. It goes to an area where love will experience nothing but pain and anguish, and yet continue to love. And that's the kind of second chances that the Bible speaks of. When humans in the secular world, in normal life, say, okay, I'm going to give you another chance, like a girl whose boyfriend has cheated on her and says, okay, I love you, but I will give you another chance, it comes with an implied threat that giving a second chance means that I'm going to really sit on you and watch you and observe you, and if you err in the smallest ways, I'm going to come down on you like a ton of bricks and break off with you and never again have anything to do with you. That's the human understanding of second chances. Punishment implied in the second chance. But you see, God doesn't do that. Because if he did that, then the whole plan of redemption would be a non-starter. So God says, okay, I'll give you another chance. Sometimes the second chance comes not because of anything the person has done, but because history and the plans of God do not coincide. Think about David. God had anointed him to be king, but nobody really accepted him. Saul persecuted him for 13 years. After Saul had died, 10 of the tribes refused to accept David to be their king, not for a few weeks or months, but 7 long years. So from the moment of his calling until he actually became king of Israel, David had to wait 20 years. But his second chance came when the tribes finally got together and said, okay, we accept that you are the chosen king of God. And then David would rise to being an antitypical kind of king. He would become the lens, the prototype through which we would understand the Messianic king and Jesus' kingship itself. So second chances are not always because of some fault, but because the way history plays out. But the fact remains that God could have abandoned David during those 13 years or during those 7 years and find somebody else more palatable, more acceptable for the nation. But he did not, because David was his chosen one, and even if rejected, he will give him another try. Now the big challenge of the gospel for us is our preparedness to give second chances to other people. The concept is mostly known as forgiveness, to forgive those who have truly hurt us. And this has nothing to do with what they've done and who they are, but with what happens on our inside. If God is working inside us to make us a new person, to make us a new creation, then we ought to be in a place where we can say maybe other people also deserve that opportunity to be a new person, a new creation. And so all of us have enjoyed second chances from God, multitudes of chances from God. The least we can do is pay that forward to enable somebody else to experience what it means to get a second chance in life. In our personal lives, in our professional lives, in our church lives, that cross behind me is a reminder of the second chance I have received. It must also be a reminder of the second chance I must give. And so as you go through life this coming week, this coming month, until my next Facebook Live session, think about that. Second chances are given to us by God, but He expects us to share them with others. God bless and have a good week.